Good evening to all. On behalf of BCF India, I take this opportunity in introducing our today's speaker, Dr. N.B.K. Ashraf. Since 2009, Dr. Ashraf is serving as a Senior Director and Chief Veterinarian at Wildlife Trust of India. Dr. Ashraf completed his Bachelor's in Veterinary Science at the Madras Veterinary College and Master's in Wildlife Science from WIA Dehradun. He has worked in Coimbatore Zoological Park as Assistant Director for 9 years and moved on towards WTI in 2001. The Wildlife Trust of India aims to conserve wildlife and its habitat and also work for the welfare of individual wildlife animals. WTI has a credit for achieving the conservation milestones such as recovering the population of critically endangered species, translocation of species, reducing the human, animal and man-wildlife conflict, and rescue and rehabilitation of animals, including of elephants, tigers, leopard, one-horned rhino, bears, etc. With WIA, Dr. Ashraf has worked with spearheading towards the wildlife rescue and rehabilitation and health of individual species. He was involved in several projects. To quote few of it here: rehabilitation of orphan clouded leopard in Assam in India, and mitigating conflict between the humans and big cat species in Uttar Pradesh, translocation as a management options for tigers, and that has moved towards other source areas, a case study from India, and clinical management of suspected organophosphate poisoning in Gibbs vulture in Assam, and gibbon transplantation, and then swamp deer transplantation, and then conflict animal management, like this, on and on. He is also interested in the Asian literary history, and to know about him, he is a scholar of Tirupuzhar. And he also published a health protocol for transportation of rescue animals and deer and leopard in the National Workshop of Zoo Veterinarians organized by the Zoo Authority, Canvas, and Aringer Anna Zoological Park during 2011. We are happy to stay connected with you, Dr. Ashraf sir, on this virtual platform during this COVID, and to listen more on bears in the Indian subcontinent, culture, and conservation perspectives. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I am really delighted to be here in the midst of people from across the globe. When Kumaraguru approached me for a topic to speak on this occasion, I had given him 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 options because I'm interested particularly in culture. I had linked it with many other species, including elephants, tigers, bear, and he asked me to speak about bears, and this is something that I had spoken in the 2012 International Bear Association Conference in Delhi. But a lot of things have happened since then. This is a new avatar of the same presentation, but in a different avatar. Now, the topic I have chosen is bears of the Indian subcontinent, cultural and conservation perspectives. As you go down the presentation, you will realize that a predominant part, about 75% of my presentation will be on culture, bear in Indian culture. So first, I would like to define what culture is. There are so many definitions, and I chose the one that suited me for the occasion. It is a system of shared beliefs, values, customs, behaviors, and artifacts that the members of a society have inherited through generations in order to cope with their daily lives or cope with their world. This is the definition that will be apt for my presentation as well. So I'm going to tell what bear meant to the people of India, as evident from historical times to the present. To the present, I mean the time when we are living in a world of conservation, in an idea of conservation, because we need to conserve species now. We have to talk about it because the system is no longer natural. To start with, a brief introduction about the arrival of bears to the Indian subcontinent and their speciation generically. We all know that due to the continental drift, India was an island in the past and collided with the mainland Asia about 30 to 40 million years ago. And then the collision was complete, and then the Himalayas started rising about 10 to 15 million years ago. So that resulted in the Indian subcontinent. Because it collided, it was a meeting place for the east and the west, for the fauna to come from the east and for the fauna to come from the west. If you look at the species of bears that we have as of now, we have the brown bear that came from the west, northwest. We have the sun bear, so-called Malayan sun bear, that came from southeast. And we have this Asiatic black bear that is distributed right across the Himalayas and the foothills of Himalayas in the northeast. And lastly, we have our own bear, so-called the sloth bear, endemic to the Indian subcontinent, including Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Nepal, which evolved as a species about 1.8 million years ago. And apparently the seed, the ancestors, are supposed to be the brown bears, and the deviation took about 4 to 5 million years ago. And ultimately what we have is the sloth bear. So India has 4 species of bears, and probably the only country to have 4. The other country, China, also has a 4. We have a sloth bear that is endemic to the subcontinent, and a giant panda which is endemic to the Chinese country. A black bear which is common, brown bear which is also common, sun bear also is common. But there's a question mark about the presence of sun bear in China. So for all you know, they may be having only 3. And as of now, India could be the only country with 4 species of bears. I have organized this presentation into bear in tradition, bear in mythology, bear in literature, and bear, the present scenario of bears in the country. To start with, bear in Indian tradition. On your left is the new logo of IBA. On the extreme right is the old logo, the old logo of International Bear Research and Management Association. And you can see that on either side of the pole, names of bears being written in various languages, 19 major languages of the world, and Balu name that is given. And if you just replace it with the 22 official languages of the country, of the 22 languages, I have given the names of 17. I have given the names of 17 of the Indian official languages. You see, you have so many names that are common between states, like Balu, which is at least shared in 5 states, Karadi, which is shared at least 4 states. You can see the last one written in Hindi, the Devanagari script. You see the arrow mark, that is from Goa. Goa is an Indo-Aryan language, not a Dravidian language. But opportunity for it to borrow Dravidian words is there because it's next to Karnataka, and it has borrowed the Tamil word or Dravidian word Karadi. As you go down the major languages, official languages, when you look at the other languages of India, we have, apart from 22, more than 100 languages that are not listed as official languages, of which I have listed down 14 different names for the bear. And the most important thing is to look at Kodavu, Gond, and Toda, where the arrow marks point out. All the three are Dravidian languages, but it is not Karadi. It is Bitu, Edge, and Sanavaral. This is in Toda language. They're all Dravidian languages, but the words are different. And actually, it is an interesting PhD topic, not only on the bears, for a linguist to look at what is the etymological significance of all these names. Now, I always find interest in comparing Sanskrit and Tamil with respect to animal names. And bear is not an exception to my interest. And roughly the similar, always Sanskrit has slightly about 10 to 20% more names than in Tamil, except in the case of tigers. And these are some of the names. Karumayir in Tamil is dark hair. Correspondingly, in Sanskrit, it is Dirjaga or Dirgaroman. Dirgaroman, which means long hair. So this is one list. So how does it fare when we compare to the other species? Bear, 17 and 18 respectively, 16 or 18 respectively. Tiger, we have more names in Tamil than in Sanskrit. It is generally an exception. Usually it's the other way around. In elephant, we have 110 names at least in Tamil and 140 names in Sanskrit. So you can compare with other species. The bear is not that much of an important. It's not an important species as far as literary poets are concerned. Bear in local customs, especially in the northeast. This is from Arunachal Pradesh. Nishi tribes in Subansiri district, they have this headgear with bear hair. Of course, they use horns also, but they have this, they use Asiatic black bear hair to decorate their heads. And then if you go to Nagaland, you will see them using as the leg band, that is the Asiatic black bear skin. What they are having as a tail, as a ponytail, is not from the bear. It is from the yak. And the other tradition we had, which we have successfully eradicated, about which I will talk about it later, is the dancing bear tradition. And D. Cruz, in their publication, said that it is as old as Vedic times. Generally, these days, people are fond of saying that everything is as old as Vedic times. But I didn't find any evidence for it. The major evidence, the main evidence we have as of now is that bears reached, the dancing bear tradition came from the north or along with the gypsies in the 11th century CE. The reason why I say is, I think the people who are investigating into this dancing bear tradition, they got excited by seeing two animals standing on either side. This we find not only in Harappan civilization, but also in Mesopotamian and the Jewish tradition. While it is the lion, Harappan or Indus Valley civilization is the only civilization where you will find tigers on either side. Now, this doesn't mean that they tamed and danced with the tigers or used lions for dancing. It only indicates symbolically the supremacy of humans over the major species of that area. It's just to denote the human dominance. But having said that, in Indus Valley, we have terracotta figurines of cows, bears, besides many other species. So the bears are there. And the figurines show that it is the Asiatic black bear, not the sloth bear. It is not the Asiatic black bear. So even though the sloth bear was the bear of the subcontinent, it is not reflected, whereas the tiger, which came to the subcontinent in recent times, not as ancient as the bear, is represented in the Indus Tales. So Asiatic black bear and the tiger, not the sloth bear. So to continue with the tradition, we have an elephant tradition, which is captive elephant tradition, which is 4000 BCE, which is true. We have a long history. And snake charmers tradition, which is early Christian era. Common Era. And Dancing Bears is basically medieval. I was looking at the proverbs, one evidence is look at the regional proverbs, and I only proverb that I could find is the Telugu saying, which says, "A man ignorant of his own prowess and those of his opponent, blustering in wrath, is like a bear performing the torch dance." This is the only evidence from a proverb I managed to get. The proverb should not be more than 100 years. All proverbs have their own lifespan. Place names after the bears. There are a lot of names that are places are named after the bear. The tradition of having, tradition of having names, the first name and surname is very common with the lion. We have a lot of Singhs. Anil Kumar Singh, Sunil Kumar Singh, Bhagat Singh. The Singh means lion. People feel pride. They're proud of having Sinhalese. They call themselves the descendants of lion. But who is there for taking a bear? We have a Karadi Sangam, MLA, MP. Earlier he was an MLA from Karnataka. Very rarely you will find people being named after the bear. It is invariably the lion and other species. However, there are around 614 places named after the bear. I'm talking about villages. Almost 99% of them are designated villages. There must be more places or spots or locations, but these are all the villages across the country. These 614 names are nearly come in 50 languages spread across 25 states, convey 92 different meanings, and these are largely villages. Sometimes spots or locations within a protected area, but that will form hardly 1% of my investigation. And the data I got is from the Home Ministry, Ministry of Home's website, that has an alphabetical listing of all villages in all states. So if you want to know Balukpong, all you have to do is go to BH Balukpong. Or you want to Karadikallu in Karnataka, all you have to do is Karadi. They look for the first word, Karadi. But you have to be very careful. Sometimes Balu, B-A-L-U, could mean sand. So the data has to be filtered and found out. Now, this is the map of the map of India, and you can see the number of villages from that I have managed to unearth from various states. It varies from just one village to 101 village per state. That is Orissa. Orissa has had the largest number of names, village place names named after the bear. Data of missing states are Delhi, Goa, Haryana, and Bhutan. In fact, I looked at the entire subcontinent, and Andhra Pradesh, very few. The major bear belt, I would say 69% of the villages come from this particular bear belt. And I looked at the density, that is number of villages per 10,000 square kilometers. West Bengal has the highest. West Bengal and Odisha are highest, followed by Meghalaya, Jharkhand, Assam, and Bihar. These are the 6 states. You can see this entire, I would consider it as a bear belt where bear had a major influence. What do these villages mean? They all mean various things. About 25% of them mean just bear place, or sometimes it is just bear hill, bear rock, bear stream, bear kill, bear den, bear corner, bear road, young bear, old bear, and about 14% are other names. So these are the various names people have used to name the village. Now the linguistic origin of these place names, and I could manage data information for 563 of the 614 place names. The 4 major words used are Reach, Balu, Baluk, and Karadi. You can see that Balu is the majority. 52% of the place names come with Balu. Karadi, the South Indian Karadi, because in Telugu it is not Karadi, it is Elugu Banti. So you have this 19%, 12% Karadi, 19% Baluk. It's a small area, but that's a highly dense village names. You have this West Bengal, Assam, all these places fall within that Baluk zone. And to get a perspective, let us compare with the village names named after the bear and village names named after the elephant. Ganesh Puri is one good example. So 614 villages for the bears, 1,500 villages at least for the elephant. That result from the same website, Ministry of Home's village names alphabetic order. It must be more, it could be close to 2,000. So you can roughly say that elephants naturally gets the precedence. The bear in mythology. One thing that most of us will immediately think about is Jambavan, the king of bears, that appears as a character in both Ramayana and Mahabharata. And but for Jambavan's presence, Hanuman would have been reluctant to go across to Sri Lanka. It was Jambavan who provoked him to take this chance and get across to the island. And Mahabharata, Jambavan plays a role in churning the ocean, fights with the lion to get a gem, loses the fight with Vishnu, and in the end gives his daughter to Vishnu. So this is the story of Jambavan in Mahabharata. And for this reason, because he gave his daughter in marriage with marriage to Vishnu, Krishna, there is a doubt whether he was actually a bear. Bears are Riksha Raja is his name. Riksha Raja are descendants of Vanara. Vanaras are heavenly monkeys. So there are stories that say that it is only in the subsequent Ramayanas that he assumed the role of a bear. In the earlier Ramayana, it was not the case. So we have a suspicion whether it is a bear or not. But as of now, Jambavan is a bear. And we do not know what species. It could be either of these two. Either Asiatic black bear or sloth bear. We are not sure what species it would have been. Anyway, it's all mythology. It hardly matters. The most important thing is to compare with Hanuman and Jambavan. Jambavan is not venerated. No reverence for Jambavan. Hanuman is venerated. Bears are not spared because being a carnivore in a conflict situation, they invariably get killed or provoked or retaliated killing is common in the case of bears. Monkeys are spared. Nobody because they are venerated. Very few temples for Jambavan. Hundreds of temples for Hanuman. Just give a comparative perspective. Continuing with mythology. Many Hindu gods and Jain gods have vahanas or symbols. These are we have the 24 Tirthankaras of Jains from Rishabha Deva to Mahavira. Rishabha's symbol is the bull and Mahavira's symbol is the lion. Not a single, you will not see the bear there. You have all species of animals, not the bear. Let's look at the Hindu gods. You have all kinds of birds, including the crow, parrot, rooster, swan. You have various species of domestic animals like donkey, dog, horse, goat, cat, including human being as the vahana of Hindu deities. We have many wildlife species, gharial, snakes, elephant, tiger for Ayyappa. But there is no bear. No bear is the vehicle of any deity or a symbol of any Tirthankara. Bear in literature. This is where we find interesting information. India is the birthplace of 8 major religions, hundreds of tribal religions, 22 official and 120 other languages. India has a literary history that spans over 3,000 years, over a lakh inscriptions, beginning with the Indus Valley civilization have been unearthed. Thousands of classics, ethical, religious, epical fables and treatises like Shastras, and we have thousands of proverbs in 102 languages, 122 languages. If you look at the bears are mentioned in the Vedas. Reckless, this is from the Rig Veda, reckless as a bear, or Maruts. Maruts is the god of storm. Is your rush terrible as a dreadful bull? This is from the Rig Veda. And from the other Veda, we have this quote. It's an advice to the mother who is looking for a husband for a daughter to make sure that he is not a meat eater, is not violent in nature. He should not be cruel like a wolf, and he should not be stiff-necked like the bear. I do not know why they call it a stiff-neck like the bear. Maybe the bears have a short neck, that could be the reason. And not only in Vedas, you do find occasional references to the bear in Jain and Buddhist classics. I have chosen these two because the first one talks about hibernation, the second one talks about feeding habits. So in Vajalagam is a Prakrit Jaina text written in Kashmir. Obviously then it is possibly a reference to Asiatic black bear, which hibernates there. So it says, the quote says, in winter the poor bear imitates the behavior of the day blooming lotuses, shrinking when the sun sets and expanding when the sun rises. And this is not wrongly typed as Vajalagam. This is words of my perfect master, which is a Tibetan Buddhist text. It says, do not focus too intently, picking out individual words and points, like a bear Dremo digging up marmots. So when the moment you say marmots as a prey of a bear, it must be the Himalayan brown bear. Each time you say one, you forget the one before, and will never get to understand the whole. This is the message from the Rinpoche, who is the author of this classic. Let us come to the fables. Panchatantra Hitopadesa, the most famous ones. There is no role for the bear in any of the stories. Let us go to the other fable, that is the Jataka tales in Buddhism. 547 tales. You have this in a big, thick book. And just one reference to the sloth bear. And it's a very important reference. This is just 4 species, pigeon, snake, jackal, and bear. They approach a would-be bodhisattva, Buddha. And they have different experiences. And then they want to renounce their world. And the bear approaches. And that time, Sakyamuni, Buddha, asks, it is your manner once to take a meal of ants upon the ant heap with a termite mound. Master bear, why willing now hunger and thirst to feel? Why swear the Sabbath woe now? The Sabbath woe is like fasting. Why do you want to fast now? You are supposed to go, your duty is to go and eat termites. So this is one of the earliest references to the feeding habits of sloth bear in Indo-Aryan literature. So this is from Pali. Now coming to the Tamil Sangam literature. Sangam literature is a collection of 2,000 odd Tamil poems composed by 473 names. And it has got abundant information on natural history, which you will see shortly. And bear is not an exception. The Tamil land, ancient Tamil land, was a highly literate society, as evident from the copious number of inscriptions that we managed to find every day. 55% of the inscriptions unearthed by the Anthropological Survey of India, he comes from the Tamilagam. On your right is two of the Sangam classics, Puranoru and Ayanguru Noru. I have just put the pictures for example. We'll see what it says about the bear. One beauty of the Tamil's love poetry or the Sangam poetry is that it is divided based on landscapes. Mountainous places called Kurinchi. Palai is the same Kurinji or Mullai landscape that how that looks in an extremely dry environment, just like you go to Mudumalai or Bandipur. In peak summer, you get forest fires, no vegetation, leaves are deciduous, animals are lean. That is what is called a deserted environment. Palai. Palai means not desert. Palai is the name of the plant, flower, that is Raitia tinctoria. The Kurinchi, Palai, Mullai, Marudam, Neidal, they all refer to a particular species of flower. Mullai is the agricultural landscape. Mullai is the forested, undulating landscape. Marudam is agricultural landscape. Neidal is littoral or coastal landscape. What is marked blue in the coast. Now the bear is always invariably comes in the Palai landscape. Palai landscape is the dreadful, dry area where the hero passes through, looking for a job or for on duty, leaving his wife or her lover. So he passes through this dreadful jungle where he finds, where you will see this poets mentioning characteristic species like vultures, owls, dholes, and the sloth bear. The sloth bear is a species identified by the poets as a species of the dreadful landscape, which means terror, fear, and discomfort. So this is where you will find the bear mentioned in Sangam literature, the Palai landscape. Before I continue with the other species, other references in Sangam literature about the bears, one of the most important things about the bear is that you can see that all quadrupeds, all animals naturally look downwards. Vivekananda says man is the only animal that naturally looks upwards because of being erect. So in Sangam literature, we have very detailed reference to the morphology of the bear. Lowered head. All animals generally look down. Bear in particular, you can see the sloth bear. It's an arched back. The snout is very close to the ground, smelling, looking for ants and termites. So one of the words that is used for the bear in Tamil is kavitalai. The prefixes. Kavitalai means lowered head. So goes in English, we have this saying that people with a negative mindset are called bearish. This is the posture of bears looking downwards. Bearish. He has a bearish behavior. So goes a Tamil proverb, as if the bear has seen the crescent. It's a surprise that if the bear has seen the crescent, because its head is always lowered, he cannot see the crescent or the moon. That is the message from this Tamil proverb, like a miracle. It is hairy coated. Paru Mayir Etrai. This is from Natrinai in Sangam literature. Hunchback, Koon Engu. So the descriptions, hunchback bear. Strong armed, because you don't die, unlike big cats, you don't get bitten. You get mauled by the bear. So strong armed, one guy engu. Bent legged, crooked legged, Kudavadi Uliyam. Uliyam is one of the words used in Tamil for, I will come to it later. Gasping mouth. Pelvai Etrai. Etrai is the name given to any male animal, particularly bears. Sharp clawed, Kur Ugir Yengu. Ugir is claw. These words are no longer used in Tamil. So these are some of the descriptions on the morphology. At least 23 poems, of the 2000 poems refer to the bear in Sangam literature, and 18 of those 23 that I managed to identify are on feeding habits. 12 poems talk about bears feeding on termites. 8 poems about bears feeding on Maduka flowers, which is Maduka latifolia in South India, Maduka indica in in rest of the country. Bears are very attracted to Maduka flowers. You all know about it. And couple of poems that talk about Maduka fruits and cassia pods. We all know that bears love cassia pods. Not only that, there are very interesting information. This is Mahua collection that is there in Chhattisgarh, the state of Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. It's very popular even in Maharashtra. People collect the Mahua flowers. They use the flowers to get milk, make pickle or a vegetable or soak it, or mainly for extracting liquor. Mahua liquor is very popular among the local people. And this is where conflict happens. Sometimes the bear comes out of the forest area into the marginal forested area where Mahua trees are not cut, they are allowed to grow, or people go to the forest to collect this minor forest produce and then get into conflict with bears. And this interesting poem from Sangam literature, Agananuru, gives the solution, what you need to do. The bears gather in large number and climb the branches of long-trunked irupai trees, irupai is Maduka, of tender shoots, and eat the white flowers that look like pieces of smashed ivory. What is left over by these bears is collected in long bamboo pipes by the young girls of the hunters' clan. So this is the method. Unfortunately, we are greedy. We go to the forest early in the morning and come into conflict with bears. The other interesting piece of information that Tamil poets of the Sangam period have observed is the sloth bear's feeding habits and how it feeds. Sloth bear is a peculiar, most peculiar among the 8 species of bears, in that it actually, all bears lap water using the tongue, like any other big cat. But sloth bear actually sucks. It has got its mouth is so designed that it's like a vacuum cleaner, and it's an adaptation to suck the termites and the pit of the termite mound, where the queen bee and all eggs and everything is there. That sloth bear goes for that pit, dismantling the any active termite mound is not left by the sloth bear, and it sucks it like a vacuum cleaner. So in the jungle, a huge armed bear digs the pit from glowworm. When molten iron is hammered, the bear is indeed an iron spit at work. So the bear's feeding habits of the sucking of termites is compared to the iron smith's bellows. So that's the sound it imitates. So this is one of the close observations on the feeding habits of bears that the Sangam poets have made. So that is about bear in literature. Now let me talk about the bear in the present. There are a couple of small videos which I don't think will play, but let's see, maybe at the end of the presentation. To start with some of the minus points, not so good news. Human-bear conflict is a major issue in many states. There are a lot of publications on human-sloth-bear conflict. It's mainly with the sloth bear, because sloth bear is the most common, and to some extent with the Asiatic black bear also. Now, as you see the photograph you see comes from a village called Korea, not South Korea, not Korea, Korea in Chhattisgarh, where a mother bear had littered in an abandoned house. There was one cub, so the forest department laid a trap very next to the only entrance the bear had. Obviously, poor bear had to come out and got trapped. The rest of the story is available in my blog. I am not getting into the story. The habit of bears using abandoned houses is mentioned in literature. This is Ainjinai Elubadu from Tamil. It says sharp-clawed bears gather and sleep in the ruined homes, on whose roof spread the sponge guards, creepers. This is the description in the book. So these are nothing new. What happened in the historical times earlier happens even now. And this house was left only a year, not even a year ago. And there were other houses very next to this house settlement in Korea village in Chhattisgarh. And as a vet, if you are a vet, your opportunities of rescuing a bear in a conflict situation. Hello?
Doctor, sorry to disturb you. Your voice is not clearly, we're not able to get. Some of the disturbance is there. Yeah, please.
Voice is not clear.
Yeah. Maybe you're near to some phone is there, you can remove that phone maybe.
Phone, the phone has that. I don't think so. So far it was clear. Can you hear? Can you hear now?
Yeah, it's fine there.
Is it okay? Should I use the head for the earphone? Maybe, I don't know. If it's not clear, I can use the earphone.
Now it's perfect.
No, perfect. Okay. So the picture on the left comes from Similipal, Odisha, and the right, what happened in Kotagiri, the tea gardens recently. Livestock killing is quite common by brown bears and black bears. Depredation of livestock by these two species. Crop depredation, again black bear and brown bear. And human deaths, retaliatory killings. Human deaths can happen inside as well as outside. In the case of sloth bears, inside as well as outside. In the case of the Asiatic black bear, is invariably outside the protected area limits. And some of the states with high incidences of human bear conflict are Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and Telangana. These are the 4 states. Of course, you have human bear conflict in all states where bears are there, but the difference is only in a matter of degrees. And these are the 4 states where conflict is the highest. The other thing which many of you will know is the illegal trade in bear products, especially the bile. And recently, after the corona epidemic, you might have heard about the news of the Chinese trying to promote bear bile as a treatment. And that was a major news, a major discussion. But the Chinese have been using bear bile. The practice of using bear bile, and many of you may not know that bear bile does have curative properties, it does have medicinal properties. It has what is popularly called forsodiol, which is clinically proven to help dissolve gallstones and treat liver diseases. But the fact is that we have synthetic alternatives. There is no need to depend on bears or indulge in bear farming to extract the bile. And the practice of using bile for treatment, there even in India, this is from Nageshwari, a classic from Maharashtra, says sometimes bile is taken from bodies of animals and used for treating other suffering creatures. Now continuing with the bear situation at the present, we have state animals for every state. Animals, they mean mammals. We have state birds, state flowers, and this is state animals. We have Hangur for Kashmir, Nilgiri Taur for Tamil Nadu down south, elephants for 2 states, Kerala and Karnataka, wild buffalo, tiger, rhino, chiro, giant squirrel, and chinkara and snow leopard and whatnot. No state has a bear as a state animal, despite the fact that we have 4 species, and if you put all the 4 species together, they are one of the most widespread mammalian species in the Indian subcontinent. Still, no takers. Some of the positives of this, that it is protected under the Wildlife Protection Act, Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act, sometimes Schedule 2, Part 1, and benefited largely indirectly through the tiger reserves. We have tiger reserves, since both are sympatric for most part of the distribution range. Sloth bears have got benefited through Project Tiger. Bear sanctuaries have been established specifically in the name of bears. Usually it's not the case. We call it as tiger reserves, elephant reserves, deep end sanctuaries. We never call it as bear sanctuary. And in these two states, we have sanctuaries established solely for our bears. We don't have a project bear yet. Just now, Prime Minister declared Project Lion and Project Gangetic Dolphin. We have a Project Tiger and Project Elephant. But is there a need for a Project Bear? As of now, no, because the bear has got benefited, especially the sloth bear. Maybe in future, but let us not forget that when you have a Project Bear, you should address all the 4 species, not just the sloth bear. This is a video which you may not be able to hear. The good thing is that even though the bear did not form a part of Gita and Panchatandra, we have this Jungle Book that has adopted Balu as a character called Balu, which is a sloth bear. It was adopted as a Jungle Book in 1894. And for the Karadi Tales, the famous Karadi Tales, the reason why they have chosen Karadi, the storyteller, bear as a storyteller, I do not know what the reason is, but it is all tales. In Tamil, the word Karadi has got 3 meanings. One is kind of a musical instrument, and the second meaning is, of course, the bear, and the last meaning is it means bluffing. Okay, so if someone says that he is Karadi Vidigaran, means he is bluffing. So that could be the reason why they have chosen, call it as Karadi Tales. Just my own impression. The other one is, we have nursery rhymes in regional languages also. So I cannot play this. This is in Tamil. The song is about Karadi Mama, India for India. These nursery rhymes in regional languages too. So the bear is getting some importance these days for creating awareness among children. The other thing is the bear in trade. There was an illegal trade in bear cubs. Bear cubs where its mother was killed and cubs were poached, and they were put into dancing bear tradition. A tradition that was probably as old as at least 500 years. It was put, and the tradition was put an end to dancing bear by 2 organizations largely, Wildlife Trust of India and Wildlife SOS, working in various parts of the country, confiscating and putting the bears in the lifetime care and providing alternative livelihoods for the Kalandar community that were dependent on bear dancing. I think this is probably my last slide, which is bear received its conservation attention in 2012 when the International Bear Association conference, IBA conference, was held for the first time in India. The IBA conferences are held every year in different countries. I myself have attended personally 2 conferences, and it was a dream come true when the conference was held in 2012 in India, in New Delhi. And this is available online. Those who need it, you can download this National Bear Conservation Action Plan. Thanks for the many people have helped us in realizing the various projects. We thank all the forest departments of all bear ranging states where Wildlife Trust of India have been working for the past 20 years. Special thanks to Dr. Satyakumar of Wildlife Institute of India, who gave a lot of information on the present scenario on conflict with bears in the country. Dr. P. Pandavya, who his website Tamil Concordance, very useful in looking for names of bears in Tamil, and the spoken Sanskrit website online. Thank you so much.